Hey, this is Matt Cannon here. I'm going to talk briefly about something that I've been contemplating today. And I'm going to tell a little story that you may not know about a horse that won the Triple Crown in 2015, and the horse's name was American Pharoah. Now, American Pharoah was actually for sale back in the day by his owner, who is Ahmed Zayat, and Zayat was actually going bankrupt. I might not have all of the facts of his story 100%, but he was in a bad financial predicament, and he was trying to sell off his horse, and he was selling the horse for $350,000. And while he was there selling it, there was this guy named Jeffrey Seder. I may not be pronouncing his name right, but S-E-D-E-R. And he has this, a lot of people call him the Horse Whisperer, but he has this company based out of Ocala, Florida. And one of the things he does is he specializes in this portable ultrasound. So he uses this portable ultrasound to check more deep into the horse and see what it is that makes the horse, what differentiates the horse from, say, what most people are looking at. Most people are looking at the horse running 1/8 of a mile. They're looking at the horse, how's it look? They're looking at the documents that show the horse's lineage and where the horse comes from, and kind of that genealogy. This horse was sired by this particular lineage, so it must be good. And a lot of people are looking at this stuff, but what Seder was looking at is Seder was actually taking this ultrasound and he was looking at the horse's heart. He was looking at the ventricles that go to the heart, and he was looking at the gait, and he would look at slow motion video to see when the horse ran. He would be concerned with details of, like, do the feet make a noise when they're hitting the ground? Because if the feet make a noise, the hoofs make a noise when it's hitting the ground, it's likely going to have sore feet later on. And if you have a long career, a racing career, and it has sore feet, that's going to cause an issue. He would pay attention to details like, do the hooves hit the joints, like the knee joints that has like 8 individual joints that are in those knee sockets, because if that's the case, it's going to have injuries likely. So he was getting deeper than just the standard what people were looking at. And what he told Zayat that day, what happened was American Pharoah had like a bruise. It had bumped its leg on something and it got infected, so it had like a swollen up thing. It was the equivalent of a kid on their senior pictures, class pictures, being like a pimple, having a pimple. It's something that's inconsequential to their career, their history, but in the moment there and then, psychologically, it messes with the student who's going to be like, oh dang, I got a picture day and I got a pimple. Well, this is how American Pharoah was. It had the equivalent of that, but a lot of people would overlook the horse. And so what Seder came in and told Zayat is, he said, listen, you can sell your house if you're trying to get out of financial difficulties. Sell your house, but don't sell that horse. And so Zayat believed what Seder said, and he went and he purchased back the horse. I believe, if my memory serves me right, it was $350,000, and he bought back the horse. And the rest is history. It wasn't like the horse was on its own. It's not like it didn't need to have a good jockey. It's not like it needed to have nutrition and good training and all that good stuff. But the rest was history. The rest of the horse was the horse went on to win the Triple Crown in 2015. And so I was thinking of this recently. There's a great book I read about American Pharoah, and we just had the Kentucky Derby over this last weekend, and it was a controversial victory. But American Pharoah was a remarkable horse, and Seder had a remarkable methodology for recognizing the horse he looked past the superficial and he looked deeper. And what I was thinking of recently was this idea of superficial signals or surface signals. What are the surface signals that we as humans look at? Like a lot of times we're looking at, where did you go to school? Where were you raised? How do you look? You know, what is your physical thing? Like a lot of CEOs are tall, white males, but a lot of times we overlook other aspects. Like look at Satya Nadella. I was just reading an article about him today, and I was fascinated. They just had their Microsoft Build conference this week, and I was fascinated. I've been fascinated. I saw Satya Nadella live in 2014 at a Gartner symposium here in Orlando, Florida. And when I saw him talk, I said to a lot of people, I said, Microsoft is going to do a turnaround. Just wait. Microsoft is going to do a turnaround. And you could just tell by someone like Satya that, you know, this is a CEO. But yet, he would probably get overlooked by many. He had a more engineering background. He was unassuming, somewhat soft-spoken, very engineer-driven. Like Satya wasn't a tall white male. I don't know how tall he is, but I don't think he's that tall. But if you look at some of the stuff with Satya and you learn about him, he's incredibly he's tenacious in his learning. Being an engineer, he would get down to the root cause of issues. He also was very perceptive. He would disarm people. Like if you just looked at how he communicates in a way that is very disarming. In the same breath, he's very deep into the data. I don't think he's a nonsense. He's no BS. He gets down to the brass tacks of what needs to happen. His library, he's a very in-depth reader. Like readers are leaders. They say that the average CEO reads about 50 books a year on average. And when you look at some of these people, success leaves clues. If you look at Bill Gates, he has a reading list. He's an avid reader. Satya is an avid reader. Jeff Bezos is an avid reader. Elon Musk. When Elon Musk was asked, what is it that enables you to do a rocket company and a self-driving car company, an electric car company, Solar City? What is it that you do this? I mean, you didn't go to school for rockets. You know, how do you do this? And his thing is, he says, I read books. His mother posted a thing when he graduated and he was going to school in Pennsylvania in college, and his mom took out an ad for him and basically said that he was like a walking Webster's dictionary, something to that effect. Maybe didn't say Webster's, but she said he was an encyclopedia, and he was full of all this good information. And people who actually read, not just to signal and say, hey, I read this book, I read that book, but people who read, like our Naval Ravikant said, you have to love to read, or read what you love until you love to read. And when I think of that, I just think of one of the signals, like Seder's ultrasound test of American Pharoah. One of the things I think that you can do is just a barometer test, is to ask people what they like to read, or what's a book that you've read in the last year that changed your trajectory. And you know what I would say would be a signal, like a signal that would show that this person could be a remarkable person, is if they start telling you, like, this book was a good book, or I read this book this last weekend, or I read this book 3 weeks ago, or earlier this year, or in 2017 I read that book, and this book really changed my life, and I'm really learning more about this and that. Readers are leaders. And it's no mistake that Elon Musk says that one of the gifts for his success is I read books. So if you're trying to determine with people, I would say one of the things that you can do is just ask what's a book you've read in the last year that's made you a better. That's like and how. Because a person who's an avid reader is going to have so many examples of things they've learned. They're always reiterating and getting better and better. One of the things with American Pharoah was he had a big heart. And that was one of the ultrasounds is he had a really large heart, and he also had a large ventricle, a much higher percentage, left ventricle, much higher percentage. And that blood flow, that lung capacity, that ability to pump blood, those little anomalies, they make a big difference. Michael Phelps is an example of a human anomaly. He has very large arms. He's like 6'4" or 6'6". He's really tall. And he has this huge wingspan, like a huge wingspan, his arms. But if you look at his legs are shorter than the average person for his height. But he has the long stride with his arms and the quick kicking of his feet. And he's got that ability to move like a true swimmer. He's biologically, genetically built to be a good swimmer. Now, did he have to practice on it? Did he have to do hours? Did he have to do diet? Did he have to do? Of course he did. But just like American Pharoah had an advantage. Enough that Seder said, whatever you do, sell your house, but don't sell that horse. And Zayat had to buy back the horse, and the rest was history. And in humanity, I heard this thing at one of our, at my company, there was like a department head meeting, and they played a clip of Dave Ramsey, and they were talking about donkeys versus thoroughbreds, and how do you notice the thoroughbreds versus the donkeys? And it was a Dave Ramsey video, and it was actually really good. But one of the things I think that you could do to differentiate is what do people do in their own time? Not the fake stuff, because people will give you fake stuff all day. They'll talk about, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But the people that are actually really reading and learning and growing are going to share a lot more. And those are the people you want to pay attention to. Also, what's a difficult situation they've been through, and how did they come out on the other side? Like, how do they cope with pressure and stress? I think that's another example, because people who are high pressure and stress, and they're stressed out, and they don't know how to deal with the things. And then you have the cool, calm, and collective people, like the world has fallen down. My boss said something the other day, and I thought it was a good example of this. Is there was someone who was stressed out about something, and they were saying it was like a rough day. And what he basically said, if that's the most difficult thing you're dealing with, then this is a reasonable, relaxing day. You know, he's basically exuding that calm, collective, I'm not going to let this bail me out. If you look at leaders that are at that highest level, and they get stuff done, and they get high productivity, and they're accomplishing a lot, they're just a calm person. They're not high strung. They're not stressed. They don't bring problems to you without some type of idea of a solution. And I think there's this tendency with people to be high strung, or be very aggressive with things, or make a mountain out of a molehill. And to me, and again, I don't have it all figured out. I'm not saying temperament, and I'm not saying that there are people that are a little bit aggressive in their leadership. They can be fantastic leaders too. So I'm not saying that you're going to have this even keel individual is the answer of what you're looking for. But what I am saying is internalizing stress is not a good long-term solution. It's like Seder looking at the feet being all damaged. If someone is hyper aggressive and rough around the edges, and they make a mountain out of a molehill on a regular basis, I mean, how sustainable is that? Now, there's the benefit of getting people to work well for you and pushing them to the limit, and that's okay. This isn't a recording about leadership styles necessarily, but it's how to get beyond the signals. Like if you were hiring someone, what are some questions you could ask, and what are some examples? And I would ask this. I would say, what is a book that's made a difference in your life in the last year? And give me a specific example of how you grew or learned from that book. I would also say, what is a difficult situation you dealt with in the last year, and tell me how you got through it. And that could be a personal thing too. Like, I think one of the things Satya Nadella, a lot of people don't know about, is he has disabled children. They're handicapped. I know that's not a politically correct term, so I apologize for that. But he has children who have a disability. And the disability, it's caused him to be very empathetic to people. I think when you deal with situations like that, like those difficult situations, and you develop empathy, here I said something that's not really the most politically correct thing, but I'm empathetic that I said it. As quick as I said it, I wanted to kind of correct myself. Not because I'm trying to satisfy anyone in particular, but again, that's an example of where that goes with that. What's a difficult situation that you've dealt with and how you dealt with it? And I would just observe them, like, what do they do for a hobby? Like, what is it that you do for your hobbies? And people will sometimes not share, truthfully, or they'll share something that's fake. But I think you can tell a lot about a person by their energy level. Nikola Tesla said, if you understand energy, frequency, and vibration, you'll understand the universe. And I think you can tell with someone what their energy level is, their frequency, and their vibration, just by the way they carry themselves. And when I see someone who's not blowing smoke up your ass, but they're actually telling you what their life is really like, and they're sharing, and you can tell it's part of their MO, their modus operandi, how they operate. And when you can see how someone operates and acts, you can tell a lot about them. And I'm not saying that people who do big challenges or they have good habits necessarily are going to make the best employees, but it is a very superficial signals that you can pay attention to that may be at least an indication of a type of person you'd want to bring aboard. I would want to bring aboard someone who's a diligent worker, meaning they work hard, but I would also want someone who is always learning, always be learning. If you're always learning, you're going to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. You'll be better today than you were yesterday, and you'll likely be better tomorrow than you were today. So it's like, if you're a learning mindset, that's like, to me, the example of someone that's going to be a thoroughbred. Like, it's the equivalent of a horse having a big heart. Humans who develop the neural pathways in their brain, it's like upgrading your operating system, it's upgrading your software, it's upgrading who you are as an individual. And I think that's a strong thing to look for, a strong signal to look for. It's some simple questions that you can ask. It's a simple methodology to pay attention to. And it's also something to question yourself. The good thing about the brain and the mind is its neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. You have the ability to grow new neural pathways. You have the ability to forge new neural connective pathways. You have the ability to forge and build your mind. And when you do that, if you take some of those skills, you're going to improve yourself first and foremost, and you're going to become a person of value. Jim Rohn talked about that a lot. He says, the more valuable you become, the more valuable you'll be to the marketplace. You want to have a more impactful and valuable life, and you want to maybe ask for more salary or whatever, become a more valuable individual. That doesn't mean, like Jim Rohn would say, and he's the guy who mentored Tony Robbins, he would say, that doesn't mean that all humans don't have value, like spiritually and are worthy of humanity, but marketplace value, like a person who has good wisdom, good knowledge, good judgment, if you have this ability, like this knowledge and insight that you're gleaned from books you've read, biographies, history, technology, even fiction, like science fiction, a lot of the real world stuff we're seeing now in the future of artificial intelligence and all of these emerging technologies have their roots in science fiction. So it's actually good to be a little bit interested in science fiction type of reading too. But all of that stuff you're learning and you're growing and you're building up a foundation, like a steel strong foundation that you can build a life upon, that you can build a career upon, that you can build all types of things upon. So it's important to pay attention to these things. It's important to learn from them. And these are just a few thoughts that I've had today. It's based on stuff I've been reading. It's based on recordings I did earlier and just kind of noodling through the ideas. So I'm driving home right now. I've had a good productive day in the office, and I just thought I would take a few moments to redeem my commute by recording and share this with whoever wants to listen to it. If it's helpful, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll have more videos like this. And if you have comments, leave them in the comments section. If you have recommendations or you disagree, feel free to do that too. I won't entertain trolls. I won't spend a lot of time debating with you, but I will take to heart what you say. And if it's a constructive improvement on this methodology and this framework that I'm presenting, I'll grow from it and I'll thank you for it. So I'm all for, I'm not a echo chamber. I don't like working in the echo chamber. I won't spend time entertaining fools, but I also don't turn down advice. There's a verse that says, don't cast your pearl before swine. And I definitely take input and I evaluate it and review it. I'm always learning and trying to grow. And so if you have some constructive ideas that you want to share, I'm all ears. I'd like to hear it. And so this is my thoughts for now. This is Matt Cannon, trying something different, a little drive home recording, signing out.